What's going on, Jeromes? The 2023 NFL season is mercifully almost upon us, and we're going to go through each Vikings position group and put some hot takes on the table, predictions, and starting off with the quarterback position. Of course, it's fitting that we have ocho predictions for the Vikings quarterback group. Number one, Vikings add a quarterback before camp. Now, this would make sense because the Vikings currently have three quarterbacks on the rooster: Kirk Cousins, Nick Mullins, as well as the rookie fifth-round pick Jaren Hall. Teams generally have four quarterbacks going into training camp, and the Vikings technically have an open roster spot, even though they currently have 90 on the 90-man because defensive end Junior Aho, the UDFA from SMU, is an international pathway player, so the Vikings will be allowed 91 players on the 90-man roster with Aho on the team. So the Vikings would make a lot of sense. The Vikings do have cap space, but I don't think that they would bring in a quarterback that necessarily would cost a lot. I think that it would make sense to throw a dart on a young developmental quarterback, like a guy like Bryce Perkins, Jordan Ta'amu, who had been in for a workout before, or do we go down the route of MBT, McLeod Bethel Thompson? That's right, baby. The pride of Sacramento State? I don't know. But anyway, former Vikings backup, MBT, McLeod, Bethel, Balthazar, Ezekiel, Thompson, or whatever. But yeah, bringing him back, USFL superstar. Same thing with Case Cookus, as well as Alex Magoo. Is the USFL MVP, led the USFL in passing touchdowns, a two-time champion, and it would make sense. I mean, Magoo was actually a thing for a while. He bounced around a couple of NFL teams. I believe he was a seventh-round pick by the Seahawks from back in the day. So adding a quarterback in that spot would make sense. Next up, quarterback room prediction number 2. Mullins holds down the QB2 job. Now, this isn't so much an aspersion on the rookie Jaren Hall, but I think it's more Nick Mullins has earned that right to be the backup quarterback, and also he has NFL starting experience. He did start 17 games, primarily with the Niners and Kyle Shanahan from back in the day. He is a solid, competent veteran backup, maybe a little bit gunslingerish, but it is what it is. He did go to Southern Miss after all, the alma mater of Bert Favre. Also, he's only 28. It seems like Mullins has been in the league forever, but he is only 28, so that's relatively young for a backup quarterback, and I think that he does end up holding down the QB2 job. Next up, number 3. But Jaren Hall does impress, and he ends up on the 53-man roster. Now, teams generally like to have two quarterbacks on the 53 and usually one on the practice squad to save space on the active roster, but I think that Jaren Hall will be good enough in training camp, the joint practices, as well as preseason, where it'd be tough to initially get him through waivers before they can protect him when he's on the practice squad. So I think the Vikings will hold him on the 53, and the fifth rounder from BYU will get a longer look in 2024. Next up, quarterback room prediction number 4. Vikings are top. I amended this. Vikings are top 3 passing team. So the Vikings actually were 5th in the league in passing yards in 2022, behind only the Chiefs, the Buccaneers, because they were always in catch-up mode, the Chargers, as well as the Miami Dolphins. Now, I think the Vikings ascend the heights this year. I think this high-octane Kevin O'Connell offense in year 2 really gets souped up. And I think that they jettison their way all the way up, pun intended, and the Vikings are going to be top 3 in passing. I think it'll be the Vikings, the Chiefs, probably the Chargers in that mix amongst the top 3. And I think the Vikings, Jefferson is going to feast, Addison, TJ, KJ, everyone's going to get after him, man. Next up, quarterback room prediction number 5, Kirk Cousins' career season. So, like we said, Kirk Cousins, black and white stats, maybe he had better years, but just in terms of his leadership and command of the offense, I think he did phenomenal. And also he did that with a very deficient offensive line, a very whatever running game, and also the 31st ranked defense across from him. But 4,547 yards passing last year, which was the Vikings career high. Also 8 fourth quarter come from behind game winning drives, all that stuff. 13 wins, the most of his career. Since we're counting QB wins, all that stuff, as well as won the division for the first time in his Vikings tenure. And I think that he will top that. I think that he will really get things together in year 2. I think his protection will be good to go. I think JJ goes wild. I think Addison steps in as the wide receiver 1 of the rookies this year. I think TJ quickly becomes a top 3, if not higher, tight end in this league. Next up, prediction number 6 for the quarterback room. Kirk, 5,000 plus yards passing. Now, Remember back in the day, like 10, 15 years ago, 4,000 yards passing was a lot. Now people do that in their sleep, man. But 5K is the benchmark, and I think with the 17th game, I think he certainly will do that. Now, Kirk has gotten close before. Back in 2016, he put up 4,917 yards passing, made the Pro Bowl, also made Sean McVay and all that stuff. But I think that this isn't going to be in terms of like bad passing yardage where a team is down and then it all counts the same. It's sort of like Phillip Rivers passing yardage when you always had to try and drag the Chargers' ass back into a game. But I think the Vikings passing game is going to be efficient. I think they're going to be attacking. I think they're going to be deadly. And I think JJ2K is going to be a legit thing. I think Hockenson goes over 1,000 yards. I think Addison gets 100-plus targets. I think KJ goes off too. So I think Kirk is going to have himself a phenomenal season this year. And next up, number 7. I think Kirk will be an MVP finalist. And, the national media jabroni haircuts will hop on the train because of its ironic things like, oh, it's so funny. Kirk Cousins is an MVP candidate, but legit. Absolutely legit. I think the Vikings will run away with the division. I think they'll have double-digit wins again this year. I think they'll make some noise in the playoffs, and a big reason will be Kirk Cousins as the catalyst of this offense. But I think he'll be in the mix with the usual suspects, Mahomes and Burrow and Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. Maybe Justin Herbert gets in there as well. Maybe Trevor Lawrence. But also, I think Justin Jefferson will also be in that mix. So maybe it could be a spot where Jefferson and Cousins split a couple votes, or it could be a spot where Kirk doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, but the Vikings still have this amazing juggernaut year, and then Jefferson gets the MVP, which would be beautiful, man. First wide receiver to ever win it. And lastly, prediction number 8, Kirk will be re-signed, where Kirk has talked about cut off the contract negotiations, want to focus on this year. I think that's a little bit duplicitous because, yes, focus on this year, but also I think Kirk knows that he has a winning hand in this spot. He's going to let this thing ride. This offense is going to be legit. He's going to put up huge numbers. The Vikings are going to win games. He's going to raise his demand, even though he'll be a year older in free agency next year, and he's going to get paid, whether here or somewhere else. I think the Vikings will acquiesce. I think that they'll realize that, hey, we had this phenomenal season with Kirk. He's not showing any signs of aging. We can run him back for another year or two. I think he'll get a two-year extension, and then we'll go from there. And then that doesn't necessarily mean that the Vikings shouldn't and couldn't be looking for the quarterback of the future in the draft next year, or maybe Jaren Hall gets an extended look in 2024. Who really knows? But that's it. Take a look at 8 Ocho predictions for the Vikings quarterback room this year. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Once worth of work, put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skull Production Value.